Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the Neos Academy. Today's Academy, we'll be talking about QuickBooks. With the QuickBooks, we will be discussing QuickBooks IIF, QuickBooks Desktop, and Online. I am your host, Pam Hodge. I am the business consultant in the professional services department. We have Lauren Root, who is our gatekeeper of our knowledge base articles. And then we have Don Rowan, who is QA and the support trainer. So you have a good group here today. Neos has an integration with QuickBooks. How do you get it all started? So if you are the admin person, you need to make sure that you're setting up your QuickBooks. You're going to go to Settings, Integrations, and then you'll scroll down to where it says QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks SDK. Okay, if you have SDK, you're going to hit the SDK. You will enter in your email address that's connected to your QuickBooks. And then if you're online, you will click Set Up QuickBooks Online, and it will walk you through what you guys need to input when it comes to setting up your QuickBooks. Now that you have set up your QuickBooks and connected it to Neos, if you are a SDK QuickBooks customer, you must download the QuickBooks integration. You're going to go over here to the question mark. When you go to the question mark, you go to our support portal, and it's going to take you to our support portal. If your what's new is popped out, you're just going to slide that back in, and you're going to slide down to where it says QuickBooks Integrator. You will select on your QuickBooks Integrator. It's going to take you to the article. You will scroll down to where you see download the integrator by clicking this link. Once you click this link, it is going to pop up your download. It will appear in your downloads folder. Once it appears in your downloads folder, you will select and run it. It will appear in your downloads folder like this. You will double click on the folder. You will extract all. Once you extract all, you will click on the folder that was extracted. Once you click the extracted folder, you will double click this. It is an executable file. Once you do that, it will walk you through setting it up. So it's going to ask you to prepare. Now, if you already have the integrator set up, it's going to ask you to remove it. So you would remove it and then install the new one. If you guys have issues with installing the integrator, make sure you contact our support team and they would be able to assist you. Okay. Again, when you go to here, it's going to give you the step-by-step instructions of downloading the integrator. It'll tell you, welcome to the integrator, and then you're just going to walk through each of the installations. And then once it is installed, you will get the confirmation that it has been successfully installed. Does anyone have any questions as where to go find the SDK QuickBooks Integrator? No?
Nothing yet.
Okay. All right. Once you have your the integrator installed, that's when I'm going to say all the magic happens. So to find your integrator, you can go to your search bar here and you can type in Neos Integrator, or mine is already pinned to my most recent. This is where you're going to go here and open up your integrator. But make sure that you guys have your QuickBooks open first so that the integrator attaches with it. Once you go and open up your integrator, you're going to get this screen. But the very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to want to set up the integration itself. All right. So I'm going to close out of my integrator and then I'm going to go back into it. So when I open up my integrator, it is going to ask me to log in. When I log into my integrator, I am using my username, my company ID, and then my password. and then I log in. If you have the single sign-in with Microsoft, you would use your Microsoft credentials to log in. Once the integrator logs you in, this is when you're going to go in here and you're going to set up your integration settings. And my computers are being a little slow. Okay. So once the integrator launches and it opens up, you're going to go to this screen here. The very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go over here to settings. When you go to settings, it's going to give you this setup. Here, you want your company name. You're going to hit the change. When you hit the change, this is where it will connect your QuickBooks to your. So if you need to open up a separate company, that's when you'll go through and you would hit next. It's going to connect it to your QuickBooks company. That's why you have to have your QuickBooks open first in order for the two to link together. Once you get the authentication, you will be able to hit finish. And when you hit finish, it is going to connect the two together. All right. QuickBooks connection setting has been saved. You can change your customer ID. So here at the company ID, if you hit change, you're going to get this pop-up. So it would take you directly back to the login screen again. But I do not want to change companies right now. So I'm going to stay logged into this one and I hit login and it is going to connect my companies together. Now, if I go back to settings, I can auto sync options. Now, with the auto sync options, you have the name queue, the check queue, and the deposit queue. Auto run after, we recommend best practices for 30 minutes. There's some firms that will set this for 1 minute, 5 minutes. Just know that when you do that, your Neos and your QuickBooks and the integrator is constantly hitting that sync every minute. So we recommend every 30 minutes for it to auto sync if you want the auto sync to be set up. Once you make that change, you hit save. Once you hit save, it's going to ask you if you want to save your changes. You hit yes. It's going to give you the confirmation that it has been successfully changed and you hit OK. At this point, your QuickBooks Neos integration is set up. Now, it's time for us to go back into Neos and start talking about how the information goes from one to the other. All right, so when I am in this company ID here, and I'm in this Neos, I have this one set up for online. So I'm going to be switching between two platforms, one that's set up for SDK and one that is set up for online. Okay, so with that being said, we are going to start with creating a new value entry. No matter if you're doing IIF, online, or SDK, this next part is going to be the same when you're creating new entries into Neos. So I'm going to go to the case that I want to create my value entry. So I go to the value tab and then I go to new value. When I hit new value, I'm going to choose my case expense, how much my case expense is, if there's a reduction, my party, and then who my provider is. I am going to send this to Johns Hopkins Hospital because it's for medical records. I can go in here in my memo and put in what the request is for. Once I hit save, it saves my value entry. But I have set my system up to request checks. So down here in the transactions, I get to hit the plus key. When I hit the plus key, this is where I'm going to put in the amount of my check. It's a payment. Today's date, it's paid by us. It's going to be paid to the provider. And then if I have reference, I can use the reference. Here I have create a check request and create due to firm. Because I want my checks to go to QuickBooks, I make sure that I hit create a check request and hit save. Once I hit save, I get the check request window that pops up, just verifying today's date. This is who it's going to be paid to. It's being paid by us. My case expense is the same. This is the staff that is requesting it. Now I go to my company and I am going to send it to our training tenant, and I get to choose my debit and credit accounts. Once I hit save, it is going to take this check request and send it to my queue. If you're using QuickBooks Online, you will go to your accounting tab, and your accounting tab is going to show you all of your entries that you have where check requests have went. The one that I'm specifically looking at right here is at the top. So I click my checkbox and I can post it to QuickBooks. When I hit post to QuickBooks, it's going to ask me what my company name is, what my debit account is. So it's going to be advanced client cost. And then the account that it's coming from is going to come from my operating account. And then I hit done. Now, if that information had been set up previously on my account and debit accounts, I would not have that extra step. But for me, I want to make sure that the person that is pushing the checks to my QuickBooks are the people that are entering in the debit and credit accounts, because I don't want just the random staff choosing that, because they may not know where that information needs to go or what account within my QuickBooks account that the money will be coming from. Once I select the check that needs to be written, I can select it and hit post to QuickBooks. But before we move on, if I wanted to post all the other checks as well, I could choose all of the checks that I want printed. So you can hit this top box and choose everything, or you can just choose specific checks to print. Once I select the check or checks that I want printed to QuickBooks, I hit the button that says post to QuickBooks. When I hit post to QuickBooks, it's going to tell me that my transaction will be posted to QuickBooks Online. It'll tell me how many transactions, the total amount. I get to choose in what order will they be sent. I can choose any of these, or I can just leave it to default. I do have the option to write one check per payee. So if you have, if you're sending medical records request bills, and they're going to, you have 10 requests going to one hospital, you have the option to write one check or multiple checks. Once you make that decision, you're going to hit post to QuickBooks. When you hit post to QuickBooks, you're going to get a confirmation up here that says data has been saved successfully. And then if you're looking at this screen here, it's going to tell you that this check was posted to QuickBooks. Once the check has been posted to QuickBooks, you can go into your online QuickBooks account. Once you're logged in, it will allow you, QuickBooks is, so to print my checks out of QuickBooks Online, I hit new. Once I hit new, I get the option to print checks. I print my check, and I get my option to print my checks in QuickBooks. Once the check prints in QuickBooks, if I go back over into my case, and then if I was to go to my case expense, once QuickBooks and the integrator refresh, your check number is going to appear underneath your reference. Depending on how often it syncs will depend on how long it takes for the check number to return to your case. All right. I feel like I went through that really quickly. Dawn, Lauren, are there any questions or any part that I need to go back over again?
So I have one in here. They're wanting to know, is there a way to clear out the checks from the requests from the accounting tab once they've all been posted?
They all stay here to my knowledge, unless that's something, but it's going to show you everything that's been populated here. Now, if you don't want to see anything that was posted previously, you can go to your filters and choose pending. So it would only show you items that are pending. And you
Okay,
do have additional filters where if you want to filter it for additional things, if you have a risk, if you just want to see specific request date or amounts, you're able to filter this. But this right here is just going to be basically that ledger of items that have been sent to QuickBooks.
okay, I have another one over here. Can you show what happens when you change the paid to and by fields? When you send a request over, so instead of being paid by us to a provider, they're
Mhm.
saying that their check request slider is going away.
Okay, so when I hit new value, I say it's a case expense, $25. Select the hospital, save. All right. And you're talking about here. So when
Yes.
it's not paid by you, so let's just say it's paid by the client, the check's not going to come from you. So this paid by, when you're actually, doing checks, this would be a check that's coming from the company and not some other entity within your case. So the paid by us will show you that it's being paid by us as the company versus the other. So we're going to say payment is going to be paid by us. So I would tell you to contact the support, because with this, I'm not sure why it's changing.
So I can
That
actually comment really quickly on that.
okay.
You just want to make sure that the value code that you have it set to, that it's set to a debit in the value codes mini directory. So ensure that the value code that you have already assigned to that value entry set to a debit. And then of course that the value that you put in that amount field is higher than 0, and that should make that slider appear there.
Yeah. So what Lauren is talking about, so if I go to settings and I go to my mini directories, and then I go all the way down here to my value codes. So you always want to make sure that all your value codes are set up properly. So here you would go here and say like your case expenses, and then here, is it a debit or credit? And as long as it's set as a debit, that slider should appear for you.
We have another one. Is the only way to see the reference number by opening the request?
So if you're on the value tab, let's see what my column. Yes. So for that purposes, if you're wanting to see that actual item, you would need to go in here and look at the item there. Let me get into one that I've requested. So the reference line is right there. But in that value entry view, it's looking at the value entry and not the transaction related to the value entry.
Okay, there's another one. Can we see an example of how the checks read in QuickBooks after sent from Neos?
All right. So you're talking about how the check looks once it's printed in QuickBooks?
Yeah, once it goes to QuickBooks.
So if this is the check, so if I hit preview on that check, this is the way it would look here. So it's just a regular check. So once it moves over there, it puts all the information here. And if you need to make any modifications, you can make the modifications and save and close. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to move over to the SDK part. So within Neos, I'm going to do the same thing. I am on the value tab, and I am going to create a value entry and then push it to my QuickBooks, because this environment is set up with SDK. So you're going to follow the same process when it comes to Neos itself. You hit new value item. You choose your value code, the amount. You choose your provider, and you save. Once you enter your value entry, you're going to enter your transaction. So you hit the plus key. You put the amount of your check, payment, date, paid by us, paid to the provider. I have my check request and due to on, and then I hit save. When I hit save, I have those same options. What company is it going to? Once I choose my company, I get to choose my debit account and my credit account. Again, these can be set up where the basic end user does not fill these in. Only the person who is pushing the checks from QuickBooks from the integrator into QuickBooks. So I hit save. Once I hit save, I get my confirmation that the data has been saved. Now, I am going to go to my QuickBooks integrator. So I am going to open up my QuickBooks integrator. Mine's set to refresh every 30 minutes, but I know that I want to write this check right now. So if I go up here to refresh, once it refreshes, it will push my check here. So just give it a minute for it can refresh. And make sure that I send it to the right there we go. So now that it's here, it's going to give me my company, the staff, the case, the date it was requested. It's a check expense, operating. It's going to be the payee. It gives me all my information. Okay. If this is the check or numerous checks that I want to push to QuickBooks, again, I select my Neos, select the company, make sure I check each of the boxes. Once I have all the checks that I want to post to QuickBooks, I go up here and I hit the button that says post to QuickBooks. When I hit post to QuickBooks, I get my same options. Do you want to post selected transactions to QuickBooks? I get to choose my order of my checks. I can overwrite all checks, or I can write one check per payee. Once I make those selections and I hit yes, it is going to push this check to my SDK QuickBooks. Once it has been successfully done, it's going to say one record successfully posted. So if I close that, I'm going to go to my QuickBooks SDK, which I'm already logged into. I go over here to print checks. When I go to print checks, it's going to show me all my checks that are pending. It's selected and I hit OK. Once I hit OK, it's going to give me my setup. I hit print. I am going to print my check. Once my check is printed, I get my verification that it was printed correctly, and then OK. So once the sync is back to Neos. Once I go back to my entry, generally it's about 30 minutes, depending on how you have it set up. If I was to double click here, when I'm looking at my entry, my check number is going to go back to my reference. Questions about going to the Neos Integrator, pushing your checks from here?
So I don't have someone with a question about checks, but I have someone, can you do a sample settlement value entry and a request for a deposit?
I'm going to get there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to go through posting all the checks and everything using online SDK, and if you're doing the same thing with IIF. Okay, any questions about creating these entries to push to QuickBooks desktop or online? Okay, so I'm going to go back here and I'm going to request another value entry to another check. So if you are one of those firms that don't use the integrator, or you're not using online, and you print and you export all of your check requests and deposits through IIF, you're going to follow the same process. Once you have your QuickBooks set up in the integrator, in our settings, you'll choose your value code. You will choose the amount of the invoice, who your provider is, save it, and you're going to do the same option. Go here, hit your plus key. You're going to put in the amount. You're going to hit save. When your staff gets to this window, when they hit the drop down, they're going to choose IIF. So when they choose IIF, it's going to ask about the same for the debit and which credit account it's coming from, and you're going to hit save. Once you hit save, you get the data saved successfully. Your entry is going to show here. Now, if you're wanting to export through IIF, you're going to go back to the accounting tab. When you go to the accounting tab, up here, it's going to tell you that your accounts are not linked with, it's linked with SDK, and it's not online. Is this going to cause any problems down here? Not at all. So if you notice that the company is IIF, if this is the entry or entries that I want to send through IIF, I select that specific entry, and here I have the export button. When I hit the export button, I get the IIF option. I choose IIF. It's going to ask you the same. How do you want it to be ordered? You can do by the case number and hit export. Once you hit export, you're going to get the verification down here that it's been complete. If you have the IIF set up with your QuickBooks, you would be able to open up this file automatically. Mine's not set up with the IIF export, but I do have the option to open up that file using a notepad. So once I go to my downloads folder where that document is going to appear, I can right click on it here, and I can open it in another app, and I can choose to open it up in Notepad. I'm going to say just once. So once I do that, it is going to open up my IIF export and Notepad. And the reason I'm doing it like this is so you guys can see what it looks like when it exports out. So it's going to give me the information that the IIF needs to import that into your QuickBooks to create your deposits, your checks, and all that other information. All right. Okay. Now, one of the questions that was just asked is, can I create an entry where I'm doing a settlement and I'm doing a deposit request? So I'm going to go here to my value tab. I'm going to create a new value. I am going to choose my settlement option. I'm going to say $100,000. And the provider is going to be an insurance company. So I'm going to choose State Farm. Once I choose State Farm, it's going to add that there. So I'm going to hit save. Once I hit save, I can go to my transactions and I hit my plus key. When I hit my plus key, this is where I can see down here, instead of it saying create a check request, it says a deposit request. I'm going to enter in my amount and it's going to show this information, and then notice that down here, it turns on my check request. Once I hit save, I get my options here. I can put in my check number, the value code of settlement, who the staff is, and where is it going. So I'm going to say it's going to my Neos. It's going to go to client trust and save. So once I do that, since this system is set up for my integrator, I'm going to go back to my Neos integrator. Up here, I have checks. If I hit deposits, it's going to show me all my deposits. And it's refreshing. My system's a little slow. I need some more coffee this morning, or I should say this afternoon. Okay, so here is the one that I just created. So it's going to gives me all the information, what company, who did it, my case number, request date, gives me all this information. When I am ready to post this to QuickBooks, I select on it like I did with my checks, and I can say post to QuickBooks. When I hit post to QuickBooks, do you want to post this? I'm going to say yes. I can choose, whatever order, and then I hit yes. Once I choose yes, it's going up. It's missing something. All right. So if it's missing something, it's going to tell you that it's missing something. So here I have to choose my, hit my 3 dots, and it's going to give me a list of all the different accounts that I have available. And I am going to choose my trust account. I hit select. Now, with this, if all of my settlements were going to, one trust account, if I was to hit yes here, anytime that it was this value code, it would choose this debit and credit account at all times. But I'm going to say no for this training purposes. But once all my information's filled in, I have my deposit selected, I'm going to post to QuickBooks. When I post to QuickBooks, I choose my order, and then I say yes. So once I do that, it is going to take that deposit, because I don't have a vendor for that vendor. So it would push this to QuickBooks. Now, please note that your names have to make sure that they are in QuickBooks. So you just want to make sure that the vendors are there, your customers are there, depending on how your firm chooses to set up your customers in QuickBooks would depend what you would push it to. All right.
Okay, I have one other one. Is there a way for our memo entries created in Neos to be sent to QuickBooks via these check requests?
So when you're talking about this memo section here?
Yes.
Okay, when you're entering this information, what goes in the memo line from Neos is the number and stuff like that. You would have to enter that into your QuickBooks because this memo is for Neos only.
That's all we have for the moment.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to go back and talk about something that I did not do in the beginning. One of the most important things that everybody needs to make sure when they're setting up their Neos, we always go back to permissions. So if for some reason you do not have access to do any of the stuff that I did today. This is an admin setting, but you need to make sure that each person or your permission groups are able to get into your accounting. So you will go to your settings. You can choose your permission groups. When you go to your permission groups, you'll choose your group that you're looking for. Once you choose your group, you're going to go down to accounting. When you go down to accounting, if you want them to be able to access the accounting tab, create deposits, create checks, do name links, do anything with the invoicing tab or funds tab, you want to make sure that these are always all turned on by this item. Now, if you're wanting them to be able to do everything in the column, you can hit the teal circle and it's going to go all the way down. You always want them to be able to see it. You want them to be able to add it. They may be able to modify it, but you don't want them to delete it. So once you have those settings, you're going to hit save, and it's going to allow your staff to create the check request, create the deposit request for their cases. All right. So I'm going to go back over here to my case. All right. Questions, Don? I've seen a few pop up as I started talking.
So we understand how to use this for the operating account, but when we order client checks through the Chase bill pay, is there a way to still track the check in QuickBooks and Neos for the trust account, but not actually print the checks since they are sent directly from the bank?
All right, say that again.
So they want to know, is there a way to track a check in QuickBooks and Neos for the trust account, but not actually print the checks since they're sent directly from their bank? And this is with Chase bill pay.
I mean, if you create those entries in Neos, you could always push them to your trust and then choose not to print them. I mean, is it, so with that setup, I would assume that you guys are giving them the specific check numbers and stuff like that. I mean, you could always push them out to your QuickBooks and then just make the adjustment into QuickBooks. But we don't have an integration with Chase Pay like we do Law Pay, which allows some of those functionalities.
All right, there's another one. Pushing a settlement deposits into a trust account also means the trust account would need to be open while posting to QuickBooks, correct?
Yes. So when I pushed that deposit, I got the error message saying that the vendor wasn't set up. It's because I was trying to push it to a vendor in QuickBooks that was not set up.
Is there a way to get several deposits to go into QuickBooks from the integrator as a single deposit instead of separate entries?
The way the integration works, it's single. So if you were wanting to create one settlement function, what you could do is, you could go to your value entry and then add them all up. But the way it works is single lines so that you're able to keep up with each of the entries.
And then we have one other one. What are the advantages of using the integrator over IIF? Are there less steps involved with check requests?
I mean, it's going to be the same thing. So if you're creating the request in Neos and you're pushing it out to IIF, you export from IIF and then you take that IIF form, file, and then you have to upload that into QuickBooks from their integration side. If you use our built-in integrator, you request the check, you push it to the integrator, and then you push it directly into QuickBooks instead of having to do, to me, in my opinion, 2 extra steps, going to the downloads folder and then re-uploading it into QuickBooks. A lot of times it is just firm preference and what they like and not like. Because there are some firms that do all this and then they have an outside accounting firm that does all their checks and stuff like that. This just allows them to send them that file. They can upload it to their QuickBooks, write all the checks, and then send it back to the firm.
I've got one more for you. What about modify? Will they be able to modify after it's been posted, or is it locked at that point?
Is what modified or posted?
I'm guessing a check or a deposit once they post it from the integrator to QuickBooks. Will they be able to modify any of the information, or do they have to delete it and start over?
Well, if you're needing to modify something on the QuickBooks side, once it's pushed into QuickBooks, you can go on the QuickBooks side and make the modifications. But any modifications that you do make, you would have to make those same modifications in Neos.
Thank you, Pam. That's all we've got.
All right. Well, I'm going to let Miss Lauren take over for a minute and let her go over our support portal information and some recent things that she wants to talk about for our recent release. And then once she is done, we can come back and do open questions. Miss Lauren?
All right, awesome. I am going to share my screen. Okay. All right, okay, let's move you over there. Perfect. Okay. So we are on one of the screens that Pam was showing earlier, the accounting screen. So using this screen, and of course from anywhere inside Neos, but I'm going to be on the accounting screen since we were talking about QuickBooks today. Going to direct your attention over to the question mark on the upper right corner. And this pop-up appears in most all places inside Neos. And you'll notice that we have some relevant articles related to what Pam was talking about and also related to this screen. So for information on installing the QuickBooks integrator, you can access it right from here. Also the connection of it and also posting. So definitely take a look at those articles relevant to QuickBooks. And we also have a great webinar on just the whole accounting function. So you can click into there and they open up as a single tab. So if this is not the one you're looking for another one, you can just click it and it won't cloud up your browser. So you'll be able to just navigate to that single open tab that displays. And so let's go ahead and click to the support portal. Of course, you can always get there through that button. And as Pam mentioned, this window will fly out immediately as you, if you haven't come in to the portal in the current browser session. So, and when there's new information here, you'll see this blue circle. It's not here right now, but you'll see a blue circle when there is new information located here. And you'll notice that we just recently had a release. So definitely take a look here. And if you click here, I'm going to open it really quickly. This will go through our public facing release notes, and it really goes into a deep dive on everything that changed in this last release. So definitely take a look here if you haven't already. And of course, we have access to our changelog, which is just a running list of all of our changes made to the product. But one of the great things about that running list is you can just do a Control F and search for like any changes to QuickBooks, for example. So that's a great resource as well. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I'm just going to navigate down really quickly and call out a few other important things before we jump into the knowledge base. If you haven't recently, definitely we have now 3 courses. As a reminder, we have our beginner, our administrator, and we now have our Neos AI training course. So if you haven't taken a look, definitely look there. It's a great resource. And again, these are free and you can take them at your convenience. So if you're in the middle and you have to step away, we save your location and you don't have to restart. And then once you complete, you get this great Credly badge that you can add to your social media, and you are basically a power user of Neos. So that's a really great resource to have. Okay, so let's jump into the knowledge base, and I will just maximize this so you can see, although maybe it's not the best view. We'll just keep it here so it's a better view for us. Okay, so as you can see, we have Neos at the top level. As a reminder, I'm going to reiterate this. I've said this in times before. You're at Neos at the top level. 841 articles is a ton to look through. And of course, we can't list them in this one view. That's why you're going to click that caret icon to the left of Neos, and you can really drill down to see all the categories in which content from Neos lives. So I am going to pull up my notes on the other side here, and there are some articles that I want to reference related to what Pam talked about today and where to find them. So accounting is one of the first ones, and accounting, that's 29 articles, a lot less than 841, but still a ton to go through. So definitely drill down again in that other caret to focus on where it is you want to view. So for example, accessing the accounting tab is a great one to reference. We have details about all of the tabs associated in that accounting tab. And then related to the QuickBooks Online, we have checks and deposits. So definitely take a look there on just how to process, post those checks that you create in Neos that you can post to QuickBooks Online. So reference that as well. And some other ones that are important, relevant to today, I'll bring you down to our integrations. Again, we're going to click that caret just to drill down even further. So in here, you'll notice that we have an article about exporting checks and deposits to IIF. So we talked about IIF today, so definitely reference this as well. And also the setup of connecting your QuickBooks Online to Neos. So definitely a really great resource to have that set up as well. And let's see what else we have. Oh, and we also did talk about, I'm going to close this so we get a little more of a collapsed view. So I'm going to go down over to our value. Pam did talk about value transactions. So of course we want to expand that caret again. And we'll click the value transactions. And in here, you can see how to enter those value transactions. Now, this is from the value side. So this is getting you into entering the transaction and getting you to the point where you can decide if it's going to be a check request or a deposit request. And then the other portion, we have QuickBooks already pulled out. So it's not, because it's so, it's one of our integrations that we have, as you can see here in our support portal, it's already pulled out. So we have it in its own section, and you can go here and same thing as before, you can install it, make sure that you have connected it properly to the integrator. And of course, for posting your checks and your deposits, as well as creating them. So some similarity that you may have seen in the value section that I covered, but this kind of just takes you from the start to finish, from creating that deposit or check request inside Neos, as well as posting it. And this also has information in here about how to access those request toggles, whether you're in a doing a check request or a deposit request. So definitely take a look here. So really great resources. And last but certainly not least, probably one of the most important things is our permissions for being able to access. So again, permissions, we want to drill down into the caret. And in those permission groups, we have our accounting permissions. So being able to access that accounting tab, the deposits, checks, and what that means, the name links, all related to QuickBooks, as well as in your case permissions, just making sure that the person that is entering the value transactions, of course, has permission to the value tab, which is down here. There it is. So just making sure that all of this is set up for the right people to handle your firm's value transactions and posting. Okay, I think that about covers it there. Oh, one last thing that is a great tactic, and I know I've mentioned this before, but it's a great thing to reference if there are articles that you know that you will probably want to reference in the future and you just don't want to lose them. Like, for example, if we are in QuickBooks and we want to reference this posting deposit. So we can always find the article number by clicking that print icon. And we're not going to print it, but you sure can if you'd like. And this article ID right here, all you need to know is this 3 or 4 digit number, this 1936. And you can be anywhere, just clicking around anywhere inside of the knowledge base. And when clicking 1936, you can see that this article pops up immediately. So we, of course, recommend that you reference the article number. Of course, you can search for it in the tree as well, but as opposed to printing, because articles get updated so often, we just want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information at your disposal. I think that about covers it on my end. Pam or Dawn, do we have any questions on what was covered here?
So we've got a couple of new questions in the chat here. We have one, we're thinking of changing over to QuickBooks for accounting, but don't use it yet. I've been told that you can't use Neos for basic trust accounting. And while you can technically use QuickBooks Online for basic trust accounting, It isn't the best without some steps to ensure compliance. If this is accurate, what does Neos recommend its users use?
Okay. Well, let's see. We do have a trust portion of that. I think, though, in the essence of time, I might defer to Pam, and then also have maybe if you want to reach out to support, and we can get you all that information in a thorough review, and as opposed to just kind of quickly. I just would rather
Yeah,
give it to you
yeah,
in more
I
detail.
believe that that question was sent prior to the webinar, and your customer success manager will probably be reaching out to you to talk about, how to go about, figuring out if QuickBooks is going to be your best option working with Neos when it comes to accounting. Please know that Neos is not an accounting platform. We integrate with accounting software to make the process easier. So we're not, an accounting platform where we're able to do, checks and balances and stay in compliance with what each state mandates that you guys do with your IULTA accounts. But your customer success manager should be reaching out to you to discuss that further.
Right, and then we've got one other one. Can we see an example of creating a check request for a client disbursement?
Sure.
Okay, I will stop the share here.
And I'm going to share. Okay. You guys can see my screen again this time, right? All right.
Correct.
So I'm going to go to this case. I'm going to go to the value tab. I am going to create new value. And then here it's going to be client disbursement. So I'm going to choose the client disbursement, and I'm just going to say $500. And then here's the party who it's going to be paid to. So since I am the person, I would choose my name as the person getting the check. And then I'm going to hit save. So when I go here, I'm going to do the same transaction. I am going to hit the plus key. I'm going to say $500. And it's going to be paid to us by the provider. And then here, I'm going to do the check request. And once I hit save, I'm going to get the same option. So here, as I'm setting this up, when I choose my company, this is where I get to choose, which credit account. So if I have my client trust account set up as one of my options, I can choose client trust account and then hit save. When I hit save, it's going to go to my integrator. So if I go back over here to accounting, notice up here it says assembly training, and here it says trust account versus operating account. So, and you would just follow the same process of sending that to your integrator. All right, so if I go here and I go to push it, it's going to ask me what company. So if I have specific ones set up, so my client trust account, and it's my client trust account, and then I hit done. Now I'm able to push this because it is showing that it is going to be a client disbursement to the trust account. Select post to QuickBooks. I get my same options. I can choose how I want it to print and then post to QuickBooks. It would be that same process. If you were in the integrator, you would request your check. You would choose that it is the client trust account. And then when you went into the integrator, you would push it as long as you have a trust account set up that it can be pushed to.
I have one more that I'm not sure the answer on because I'm not familiar with tabs. Does Neos do what tabs does, or would there be a need to keep both tabs along with Neos and QuickBooks?
Okay, so Tabs is an accounting platform. Currently, we do not have an integration with Tabs. So you would make the decision if you're going to stick with Tabs or if you're going to switch over to QuickBooks. So currently, we don't have an integration with Tabs, but it's, QuickBooks and Tabs are both accounting platforms. We just integrate with with QuickBooks currently. Alrighty.
That's all the questions we currently have.
Well, that's great. All right. So I just want to remind everybody that, to sign up for our Neos Academy in November. Want to thank everybody for joining today. Remember, we have the Neo certification. And if you need to book any additional training time, please reach out to the training team through the online support. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for joining, and we look forward to seeing you guys next month. Have a great day.